The officer is recovering after being critically injured in a shooting early yesterday morning near campus. Chesterfield County Police say he was checking out a disturbance involving a group of people when the suspect fired on him and ran away. It put the school in lockdown for several hours. About 4,500 students attend the historically black university just south of Richmond. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Make your next lunch a lunch combo from Buffalo Wild Wings. Choose from wings, street tacos, and more. Head to Buffalo Wild Wings or order online at buffalowildwings.com. At participating locations for a limited time, Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Price and participation vary by location. Taxes extra. See menu for details.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers beat Portland last night without LeBron. A left calf contusion kept LeBron in street clothes. In his absence, the Lakers got 30 points and 13 rebounds from Anthony Davis. There are some serious issues going on with the Clippers. Memphis handed the Clippers their fifth straight loss. The Clippers are 0-4 since trading for James Harden. Harden had only 11 points. He was 4-12 from the floor, including just 1 for 7 on three-pointers. The Chargers scored touchdowns on their last 5 possessions Sunday, but still lost to the Detroit Lions. How is that possible? The Lions got a field goal at the buzzer to win it at SoFi. The Chargers defense gave up 533 yards in total offense and allowed the Lions to make 4 fourth-down conversions. Going to be a long week for the Chargers defense in the film room. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 invites you to join us in celebrating the season of giving by being part of the solution. As we enjoy great food, family, warmth, and well wishes in whatever our festive tradition may be, we share the beauty of the season by reaching out to the less fortunate. Please help us to help others with the KBLA Cover the Houseless Cozy Community Coat and Blanket Drive. All you have to do is drop off new or clean, gently used winter coats and blankets in the KBLA lobby during business hours, now through December 20th. All of the coats and blankets will be donated to unsheltered individuals and families experiencing houselessness. Simply bring your donation to 4434 Crenshaw Boulevard in Los Angeles, near Vernon Avenue, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. weekdays. That's 4434 Crenshaw in historic Leimert Park. During the holidays and every day, let's remember, we keep us safe. We keep us warm. We are the safety net, and together we can cover the unsheltered. Get caught up in the spirit of the season, the spirit of love. Make a difference with your friends at KBLA Talk 1580.
Live from historic Leimert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. And by the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit thetavisSmileyShow.com. That's thetavisSmileyShow.com or wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, 2 conversations. Up first, the man who organized some 300-plus faith leaders to sign that full-page ad days ago in the New York Times calling for a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war. Pastor Michael McBride joins us on the top of Hour 2. On the B side of Hour 2, we'll be joined by the former CEO of the Democratic National Convention, Leah Daltrey, now Bishop Leah Daltrey, one of the signatories on that New York Times ad. In our third hour, two more conversations. Up first, Sherman Dilla Thomas says everything dope about America comes from Chicago. That's funny because Spike Lee told me the same thing. Tavis, everything dope about America comes from New York City. Okay, we'll hear the case for Chicago at the top of Hour 3. On the B side of Hour 3, Prince doesn't just have a rich musical legacy. Prince has a philanthropic legacy as well, which includes Live for Love charities. Prince's former wife, dancer, actress, and author Maite Garcia joins us on the backside of Hour 3 to talk about Prince's enduring philanthropic legacy. But in this first hour, two more conversations. On the B side of this hour, the CEO of Lindustry, Everett Sands, on how the 401k method to building wealth just changed. You'll want to hear all about this if you're a 401k person. We'll talk about that on the B side of this hour. Before we commence today's show talking politics, though, with distinguished university professor of political science at Hamline University, David Schultz, a quick programming note. On Tuesday, that would be tomorrow, a great lineup of guests, including the very talented actor Omar Epps. He has appeared in some classic feature films, but he's also an accomplished author. A career conversation tomorrow with Omar Epps. On Thursday, Nikki Giovanni and Jada Pinkett Smith will both be here. We'll talk with Nikki Giovanni about her new doc, about her life, Going to Mars, the Nikki Giovanni Project, and of course we'll talk to Jada Pinkett Smith about what else, the controversial memoir, Worthy. Some great guests every day this week on our program. Again, tomorrow, Omar Epps. I should mention Geraldo Rivera on Wednesday on Leaving Fox News and his former friend Donald Trump. Geraldo is part Jewish, so we'll get his take on Israel, Hamas. So Omar Epps tomorrow, Geraldo Rivera on Wednesday, and Nikki Giovanni on her documentary, and Jada Pinkett on her book, Jada Pinkett Smith, that is, on her book on Thursday. Some great lineups, great conversations, rather, on our lineup all this week. Having said that, though, we start today's program, as I promised a moment ago, talking politics with David Schultz of Hamline University. Professor Schultz, how are you today, sir?
I am great, Tavis. I hope you're doing well.
I'm doing well. If I complained, I'd be an ingrate. I'm delighted to have you back on the program. So much to talk about in the time that we have. Let me just jump right in. I think I want to start with the thing that will matter most to all of us. There's Trump news to talk about. Tim Scott has suspended his campaign. So these Republicans are dropping like flies. We'll talk about that and other issues to get to. But Congress is barreling toward another shutdown with a GOP House divided. So they got together on getting Mike Johnson to be Speaker, and that wasn't easy to do with 3 or 4 persons who thought they were going to get it, who did not. But now he's offered this sort of 2-step process to avoid shutting down the government later this week. The problem is that Democrats clearly don't like it, and hardline conservatives who helped put him in don't like it. So should we brace ourselves for a government shutdown later this week?
I think we are going to see one, and I'm going to describe it as not a total government shutdown, but it's a partial government shutdown, but it's still a problem because the thing that's important to note here is that some things, like at least temporarily, grandma's going to get her Social Security check. She's not going to get thrown out of a nursing home. But think about some people who are going to be impacted. Most importantly, unfortunately, it's going to be women and children, because food stamp program and the women and infant children formula programs will not get funded, which means right off the bat, the most vulnerable people in our society are going to be hurt. And then for those of you who are traveling, who have to deal with TSA, it may turn out that TSA doesn't get funded and those agents are compelled to show up to work without being paid. You think they're grumbly right now? Think how grumbly they're going to be later on. So immediately it's going to affect the most vulnerable in our society. If it goes longer, then it'll have more broad-reaching effects. But think about what this also is telling us. On one level, it's telling us that a small, very small number of really extremists are holding the government hostage. And that's what's happening here. But also think about the message this sends internationally to our allies, sends a message to other countries across the world that want to look at us as a democracy. And we look like, what, the Three Stooges? I mean, we got problems here.
Yep, we got more than a few problems. That's an understatement of the day. Just getting started in this first hour with David Schultz, talking politics. We'll come back to this notion that the person's most likely to be hurt. No surprise here, but it's a sad reality, one that I'm tired of hearing after all the years of doing broadcast media. Every time there is one of these government shutdowns, even a threat of a government shutdown, it's always the most vulnerable who are the first in line to get to be impacted, and that is no different this week. We'll talk about that and a great deal more when we come forward with the David Schultz on Tavis Smiley.
More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Escalade IQ. This the intro to the all-electric Cadillac, perfected like Zoom. And on a full charge, you get 450 miles without the stop. Haiku. This is what I do. Daddy fat intellect since 92. Linked all the way back, panoramic roof. Come with 24-inch rim standard. Ooh, why? Shout it, don't kill him. Cadillac diamond in the back, cold chillin'. And when I'm on attack, on the track is no ceiling. Sky's the limit. You hear me? You hear me? Straight drop, no parachutes. Lay lines like a longitude and latitude. Deal it, beloved, clearly we're hustling. Bustin', truckin'. Cadillac, Cadillac.
For more on the Escalade IQ, visit Cadillac.com.
Available late 2024. GM estimate 450-mile range. On a full charge based on development testing and/or analytical projection. Consistent with SCHA 1634 revision 2017 MCT. Range subject to change prior to production. Annual rates may vary based on service factors, including ambience, temperature, terrain, battery age, and condition loading, and how you use and maintain your vehicle.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, Maisha Cairo here, KBLA, live at Chase Bank on Crenshaw and Vernon for the In This Together tour with female business owners, a day of empowerment, community panels, and best of all, tips on building business from marketing to capital. I was able to speak with Kate Luzio, former banking executive and now owner of Luminary, who partnered with Chase for this tour. She makes it her business to build community for business owners.
Yes, so I was a banker for 20 years before I decided to become an entrepreneur. 7 of those years were actually at JP Morgan Chase. One of the biggest things that I had going into my entrepreneurial journey was a big background in banking.
So what advice are you giving business owners looking for financial backing today?
So Chase brings in so much knowledge and the opportunity to understand what financial tools are out there for business owners to build, grow, and scale their business. A lot of business owners will say, well, I need to get a loan immediately. Well, you wouldn't just lend money to your friend if you didn't know why they needed it. I tell every business owner, you need a business plan, you need financial projections, you need a banker. Because you have to start building a relationship with a banker so that they get comfortable with how you're going to build that business and so that they can eventually support you in different ways.
Makes sense. So visit the Chase Community Center on Crenshaw and Vernon. Meet a banker today. Tell them about your business. I'm Maisha Cairo in the community for KBLA with JP Morgan Chase.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
Made fresh daily in the Mert Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley in dialogue with David Schultz, author and distinguished university professor of political science at Hamline University, starting our program as we tend to do on the first day of the week, talking politics, a lot of breaking news to get to in these few minutes. In case you haven't heard, there's a highly likely chance that the government will shut down once again this week, and many people thought that by getting a speaker some days ago, we might avoid this. Not so. apparently. Many believe that in just a matter of days, later this week to be exact, Friday, we will experience the beginnings of a partial government shutdown as Professor Schultz sees it. His point moments ago was that the persons most impacted initially, who else? Always the most vulnerable persons. That's the way this process works, sadly. Always the most vulnerable people, the least among us, who are the first to be impacted by these cuts. So Democrats are against this laddered approach, this two-step approach that Mike Johnson, the new speaker, has proposed, in part because it lacks aid for Israel or Ukraine in the legislation, and that's one of the hallmarks of what they want to see in the legislation. So no funding for Israel, no funding for Ukraine. As you know, Mike Johnson separated those two things out anyway. Joe Biden asked for money for Israel and Ukraine. Mike Johnson said, not so fast. Let's do it separately. He pulled Ukraine out and separated from funding for Israel. So that's one issue. But Democrats are opposed to it. They don't like the laddered approach, and they don't like the fact, again, that there's no money in this budget for Israel or Ukraine. Conservatives initially were in line with this. They endorsed the laddered continuing resolution. They now are opposed to it because it does not include spending cuts, but instead funds the government, at least temporarily, at the same levels. So again, Professor at Hamline, David Schultz, they can't get conservatives in line. I did say Mike Johnson can't get conservatives in line because he doesn't have enough spending cuts in it. No spending cuts. Democrats don't like the laddered approach. So I don't know what happens between now and Friday. I think you're right. We're going to see a partial shutdown this week.
Yeah, and there doesn't seem to be any room for compromise, because what would make sense in a hypothetical world is that you basically jettison those really conservative Republicans and say, okay, we can forge a deal between the Democrats and some of the moderate Republicans, of which there's easily 218 votes to do it, send it on to the Senate, and everything is fine, except the rules that are set up. When Mike McCarthy became Speaker, was earlier this year, he set up all these rules that made it possible for one person in the House to call for a motion to remove the Speaker. And that's what happened to McCarthy, and that rule is still in place here. So if now the current Speaker tries to carve a deal with the Democrats, or to try to basically move in a different direction here, he's probably going to be ousted. So the basic problems that were in place almost from the start of the beginning of 2023 are still in place, and we're no further along now than we were before. And that's the problem. We have, if I can describe it this way, we've got a few Republicans holding the House hostage, which means it holds the government hostage, which means it holds the entire country hostage at this point. I mean, to me, it's no more than extortion that's going on at this point. And they want cuts. They want cuts mostly to what? Social welfare legislation. They want cuts to enforcement of civil rights. They want cuts to whatever little there is trickling down for student financial aid, whatever little is being trickled down to help the poor already in this country. They want to get rid of all of that.
To your point about Kevin McCarthy and the fate that he suffered earlier this year, I said when Mike Johnson got elected, we'll start counting the days for how long he gets upended, because you're right, the numbers haven't changed. And as long as this handful, this small few of hardline Republicans continue to hold the House hostage, this is what you're going to get. And to your point, there doesn't seem to be much room for compromise. I said Democrats are wholeheartedly against it. They didn't save Kevin McCarthy, and there's no reason for them to save Mike Johnson at this point. And these hardline conservatives seem not to be willing to compromise at all. They want spending cuts. They don't like this laddered approach. And so there you have it. I don't need to waste much more time on this. I do not see at the moment, David Schultz, our guest, does not see at the moment anyway, that we avert or avoid at least a partial temporary government shutdown later this week, because nobody seems willing to budge on this. We shall see what happens in the coming days. But again, don't hold your breath. Who knows how much longer Mike Johnson will remain Speaker of the House. I digress on that for the moment. We'll see where we are a few days from now. Let me move now to, speaking of Republicans, to Republican politics. So this is inevitable. Whenever you have 80 million people running for president over time, people start to drop out. And we've seen a number of them start to drop out. And the most recent big name to pull out was Tim Scott. So Tim Scott, I was literally discussing this on our program, I think on Thursday. I was saying to one of our guests on Thursday after that Republican debate in Miami that Tim Scott appears to be fading to black. He's not standing out. He's not finding any opportunity to have a moment in any of these debates. And my view last week was it ain't going to be long before Tim Scott fades to black. Pardon the pun. I didn't know that it would happen so quickly over the weekend. But for those who were listening last week, you heard us tee that conversation up. And now Tim Scott is out of the race. The last remaining African-American tried to make a case that the Republicans didn't want to hear. How do you read the fact that Tim Scott is now out of the race?
First of all, I'm not surprised whatsoever. I mean, Trump is just so dominating the field at this point. He's got over 50% support. Nobody else is even close, even like DeSantis and Nikki Haley. And Tim Scott almost strikes me as, like, I don't know, an odd person in the Republican Party at this point. Is that he's trying to run not on anger, which I like the idea of saying he's going to try to run in terms of, let's say, not being mad at the world, but also I have to be sort of really honest here and say I don't quite understand how a black person is in the Republican Party these days when I don't see the Republican Party doing a heck of a lot to help Black America. Now, unless I'm missing something that you see that I don't see at this point, but it was kind of like watching him be about dead man walking. And when I was watching the debate the other night too, just if you count the number of minutes he had to be able to say anything, he didn't get much airtime. And B, he's not a zinger person. He's not out there trying to go for like Haley or Trump or DeSantis, or Christie. I guess I'll say he's not a blowhard. He's not a blowhard. And again, I don't agree with most of what he has to say, but he struck me as being more thoughtful, and that kind of doomed him.
The irony of this is that while Tim Scott, again, the remaining African-American, Will Hurd dropped out a while ago, Larry Elder dropped out some time ago, Tim Scott, of course, had more stature than any of them as a member of the United States Senate, and he had more money. He had more stature, right, and had almost $25 million. They spent millions of that $25 million, almost 25, trying to make a case for him, and he just didn't seem to ever catch fire. To your point, though, about how anybody black can be Republican these days, we could have that conversation for hours. Right. And I don't begrudge anybody their own political, politics, their own political party affiliation. If that's what you choose to do, that's your business. But the irony of it is that Tim Scott is an African American. He is, a member of the Republican Party. And he drops out of the race this weekend, suspends his campaign, is the official language that they always use. He dropped out, right, but they suspended the campaign. There's a story today in the Wall Street Journal. We saw this story last week. Again, literally a week ago today, last Monday. There's a big poll in the New York Times. You saw the New York Times Siena poll that found that Donald Trump was leading Joe Biden in 5 or 6 key battleground states. And that in those battleground states, Trump was polling 22% amongst black voters. And that just was troubling to a lot of people and still is. So here comes the Wall Street Journal today with the data they've laid out a week later. And again, there's a huge story in the WSJ today about Biden's slippage when it comes to African-American voters. I'm not even sure I know how to connect these dots. But at a time when the polling suggests to us that more black people are considering, if not the party, certainly Donald Trump, the one African-American remaining drops out. It's an interesting irony to me, Professor Schultz.
Yeah, there is an irony here. And again, we could have probably hours and hours of discussion also talking about whether and how much the Democratic Party is really working to the benefit of African Americans versus how much of it is lip service too, in terms of sort of going through things. And that's a really good topic for discussion out here also too. But in general, Joe Biden's, beyond the age factor, he's not convincing anybody, including African Americans, that he's making their life better. At the end of the day. And remember many years ago, what was the great Ronald Reagan line that said, well, are you better off now than you were 4 years later? And I don't know about you, but it's hard for a lot of people to sort of say, here's how my life is better right now. After going through all the inflation the last couple of years, gas prices are still high, et cetera, et cetera. I think Biden has failed to make that argument and really show, the difference in people's lives. And I think that becomes part of it, part of this movement, even among, persons of color over to Trump, because it may not be so much that they support him as that they're not thrilled by Biden and they're looking for an alternative.
I was reading a number of pieces this weekend, but one of them comes to mind now as you make this point about this conundrum that the Biden administration faces. And on a certain level, you sort of feel for them, and I want to get your read on this. Because if you look at the data is pretty clear that Biden has done a decent job of putting this country back from the brink. We are not experiencing economic collapse. He has done a pretty good job of shepherding not just the economy, but he took over for Donald Trump, and many people around the globe were laughing at us, and to your point, sort of laughing at our democracy. And so he's done a fair to middling job, and yet they can't understand. They being the Biden administration, I was reading in this detailed article over the weekend, they can't understand why people aren't getting that, why people aren't feeling that, why they aren't getting more credit for that. They're scratching their heads about this. And if you were in the room with them in that conversation, what might you add to the conversation?
Well, first off, I would say absolutely right. In many ways, he's the most consequential president in terms of legislation passed. And I'm going to say almost back to Lyndon Johnson in some sense, but think about the numbers: relatively low unemployment rate, the more people working now than almost ever. And if you care about Wall Street's doing well, a whole bunch of things. First off, what I think Biden has to do is a much better job of telling a story in terms of explaining how what he's doing is making a difference in people's day-to-day lives. But I think even if he does that, he's stuck with an image issue. It's kind of like once the story has been told, and you know what I'm referring to here.
Sure.
Once the narrative is out there, how do you change that narrative? And I know for a lot of people, some of it is also just the fact that they're saying he looks too old at this point. So he's got the, let's say, the age factor. He's got the fact that he's not a dynamic speaker getting the message out. And I think he has, I'm going to say, he has to go on the offensive. I don't think he can win people over, but he's got to turn people against Donald Trump.
Yep. George Will, who clearly is no raging Democrat or liberal, but George Will is bright and has a good way of reading the tea leaves. And again, he's a conservative, but I read his stuff to see what George is thinking. I've known George for years, and we've done a lot of stuff together on ABC this week over the years on Sunday mornings. But George had a piece this weekend, and he basically wrote that Democrats and Biden are like the walking dead. Mm-hmm. And for the next 12 months, they're literally going to walk themselves into defeat if they cannot figure out a way to get somebody else on this ticket. And I hear all the arguments for why Joe Biden is still the best option. But my read on this, and if I were in the room, I would add to your comment that I think what Biden is suffering from is that no matter how good the record is, no matter what he's done, I would echo your comment that when you see him, nothing about him inspires confidence.
Yeah.
He's fragile. He's almost whispering when he talks these days. So there's nothing about him that inspires confidence. I've said before, it's not about just being old. There are a lot of virile older people. You know, my mother's almost 80, and she walks, 5-6 miles a day, and she gardens and she does all kind of stuff. My mother is almost 80, but very, very virile. And there are many people like that who are strong, who are driving, who are going to meetings, who are running companies. So it's not just that you're old. It's not about his age per se. It's that at his age, he looks fragile. He doesn't inspire confidence. And my point is that I don't care how well you've done if you don't inspire confidence in real time. It's not about what you've done in the past. Every election is about the future. And at this moment, he doesn't inspire confidence for the future. And I think that's why, no matter how well he's done, people can't buy that because they don't see in this moment that he's inspiring any excitement about their future. And I think that's a problem. And so it really does raise this question as to whether or not, no matter how well he's done, he is the right messenger at this moment. He was the right person 4 years ago. He did his part. He served honorably. Maybe he ought to step aside. But I just don't think they're ever going to get it. They're not going to get the fact that if you don't inspire confidence right now, no matter what you've done, it doesn't work. I'll leave it there for now. Professor Schultz, good to have you on the program. We'll do it again. All the best to you. Thank you for your time, sir.
My pleasure. Thanks, Tavis. Bye.
More Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
You're listening to Tavis Smiley. Tavis Smiley. Ranked number 45 on the Heavy 100 list of the 100 most important radio talk show hosts in America.
What's up, party people? It's your favorite MC's favorite rapper, MC Light here. And we're celebrating 50 years of hip-hop, authentically powered by Cadillac. And we're going to take it way back to where it started. It was only fitting that hip-hop began with teenagers at a back-to-school jam in the rec room of a South Bronx apartment complex by an 18-year-old brother. By the way, I'm also sure he had a Cadillac parked outside. He noticed the energy on the dance floor when he switched between two turntables, extending the beats, repeating the breaks, and never losing the rhythms. And that was the birth of hip-hop. And from that moment, it took off.
For more on how Cadillac is celebrating hip-hop's 50th, visit Cadillac.com/audacity.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The work week is starting off with a traffic nightmare in Southern California. A major freeway is closed in downtown Los Angeles, and it could stay that way for a while. A pallet fire broke out underneath an I-10 overpass Saturday, triggering a state of emergency. A top California Department of Transportation official says repairs will pose a significant challenge for engineers. A Virginia State University officer is recovering after being critically injured in a shooting early yesterday morning near campus. Chesterfield County Police say he was checking out a disturbance involving a group of people when the suspect fired on him and ran away. It put the school in lockdown for several hours. About 4,500 students attend the historically black university just south of Richmond. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Make your next lunch a lunch combo from Buffalo Wild Wings. Choose from wings, street tacos, and more. Head to Buffalo Wild Wings or order online at buffalowildwings.com. At participating locations for a limited time, Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Price and participation vary by location. Taxes extra. See menu for details.
If you like using debit over credit, shouldn't you also get rewarded? Well, now you can with Discover Cashback Debit. It's a checking account that rewards everyone with cash back on everyday purchases with no fees, period. Check out eligibility and terms at discover.com/cashbackdebit. Discover Bank, member FDIC.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
I'm a bad man. The Lakers beat Portland last night without LeBron. A left calf contusion kept LeBron in street clothes. In his absence, the Lakers got 30 points and 13 rebounds from Anthony Davis. There are some serious issues going on with the Clippers. Memphis handed the Clippers their 5th straight loss. The Clippers are 0-4 since trading for James Harden. Harden had only 11 points. He was 4-12 from the floor, including just 1 for 7 on three-pointers. The Chargers scored touchdowns on their last 5 possessions Sunday, but still lost to the Detroit Lions. How is that possible? The Lions got a field goal at the buzzer to win it at SoFi. The Chargers defense gave up 533 yards in total offense and allowed the Lions to make 4 fourth-down conversions. Gonna be a long week for the Chargers defense in the film room. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Anyone can choose to make a difference. You can help people succeed, rebuild after disasters, protect the environment, or feed the hungry. Not only will you make a difference for others, but for yourself. You can earn money for college, learn career skills, and make friendships that last a lifetime. Make a difference. Choose your future. Choose AmeriCorps.
Mom's early Alzheimer's diagnosis was hard to take. And when I left the Evan-On, we decided together that it was time to see a doctor and make a plan. Early detection gave us more time to seek out information and support as a family.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together. For more information, visit alz.org/time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
November is National Runaway Prevention and Homeless Youth Awareness Month, and the Sanctuary of Hope is shining a light on the situations that cause youth to run away or face a housing crisis. In LA County, nearly 3,000 youth are homeless on the streets each night. All month long, the Sanctuary of Hope will lead activities throughout LA County to inform and mobilize calls for action, and you can help. For more info, go to www.thesoh.org. That's www.thesoh.org. Do you have both Medi-Cal and Medicare? The new LA Care health plan called LA Care Medicare Plus, HMO DSNP, can help you get the most out of your health plan for $0 premium. LA Care is here to provide Angelenos with access to quality health care at an affordable cost. For $0 premium, you can get full benefits from vision coverage and in-home support services to prescription drug coverage, plus more. Call 855-688-1479. 855-688-1479. KBLA Talk 1580 is the exclusive media sponsor of this light of ours, activist photographers of the Civil Rights Movement. A dynamic new exhibition on view now at the Skirball Cultural Center in Los Angeles. This light of ours showcases more than 150 photos taken by movement insiders from diverse backgrounds that reveal the vital work undertaken by a broad coalition of organizers and everyday people whose collective action changed America. This light of ours is one of 3 temporary exhibitions currently on view at the Skirball, which together explore issues related to civil rights, immigration, and pluralism. Tickets and more information for all 3 exhibitions are available at skirball.org. That's skirball.org. SKIRBALL.org.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
A conversation now with the CEO of Lendistry, Everett Sands, about how the 401k method to building wealth may have just changed. Everett Sands, good to have you back on the program. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Dennis?
I'm doing well, thank you. All right, jump right in. Tell me what we need to know about this 401k plan that many of us have relied on to help build wealth.
Well, I think like anything else, we have to make sure that we're able to move around when the market is adjusting. And I think the key is understanding that everything has its own different investment cycles and different things like that. So as we're talking to your audience, I think we got to just give them some of the basics of how they should be thinking about 401k investing, et cetera. So the first thing is 401ks are always good if you have an employer match. The key is don't lose any money, right? So let's just make that mathematical for a second, Tavis. If I make $50,000 a year and I invest 6% of my income, which is $3,000, and my employer matches, let's just say 6% as well, just to make the math simple, I get $3,000 from my employer. So I invested $3,000 and gained $3,000. That's 100% return. The challenge is when we invest $3,000 and we get $6,000 and then we lose $12,000, right? So because we're not necessarily paying attention to the way it might be moving or what's going on in the market, and sometimes we feel like we have to be experts. What I have a tendency to tell the individuals that I talk to, and to be clear, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just somebody that watches markets every single day. Is it's important to just understand some of the basics of market movement. When you hear things like interest rates are going up, not only do interest rates go up on your house and your car, but they also go up in your bank. And so that means if you put more money and more savings in your bank, you get a higher return, like we're in that today. When you think about that from a stock market or 401k perspective, that means you're going to get a higher return on bonds. And so what we have to learn are the basics, and the basics are, first, do I get a match? 2, when do I get to adjust my portfolio? And then 3, use basic context clues for when you want to make those adjustments. So again, higher interest rates, higher rate of return in my bank means I should shift my 401k towards bonds as opposed to towards stocks. And it doesn't mean you eliminate stocks, but it just means you're going to put a little bit more money in those bonds than you would in stocks as a percentage. Typically, the 401k looks like a pie chart, and you get to decide what percent goes into what part of the pie, even if you don't understand all the underlying things that are being invested in it. So that's the first way I would start.
Okay, and keep going. I'm listening. Build on that. I got the basics, so keep building.
Okay. So the second thing is, I think we have this kind of, either somewhere between fear and exaggeration about how the stock market works and what we should do. And I think the most important thing to start to tell the audience is they should invest in things they know. So let's make it really simple. If you are a sneakerhead, you know how well Nike is performing because you and your boys and your friends and whatever, they're buying a bunch of Jordans, right? And so don't overthink it. Buy stock in Nike, right? If you are somebody who is into cars and you're starting to say, oh man, Tesla's got this new car or there's this new electric vehicle or something, and I see those on the street a little bit more, then you might want to put some of your money in Tesla or one of the, the electric vehicles or something like that. Again, I tend to think we should be very, very simple in how we think about it, whether it be clothes, whether it be vehicles. And then the number one thing that I think a lot of times we're not thinking about is our own profession. We go to work every single day. We know exactly what we do. Why not invest up or down in the things that we know about? It'd be like me investing in banks. I know when banks are high and when banks are low. When interest rates are higher, banks make more money. When interest rates are lower, banks make less money. At a basic level, we know our own industry and we can invest in our own industry. These are some of the starting points I would give to the audience.
Mm-hmm. When I framed this conversation initially, I raised this issue of some recent changes in how we ought to consider using 401ks to build our wealth. Have there been changes here that I'm missing here?
I think it's okay that you're right in terms of how you leverage the 401k. And I think the basic premise of what you're saying is because of the deficit, because of different things going on in the economy, because of what's happening in terms of what we just came out of in terms of COVID and all the money spent on that, should we pull back a little? And I think the answer is yes, provided that we don't interrupt that match from our employer. So I think the first part is, making sure we understand we got to get that just that match is extremely important because that represents potentially 100% return. Then I think if we start to pull back beyond that match, so let's go back to our person that we gave a mathematical example to. Let's say it's $50,000. Their match is only $1,500. So I would only suggest they put $1,500 in a 401k. But they were supposed to invest $3,000. So now, naturally, I'm sure your question to me is going to be, okay, where are they putting out the $1,500? And I think that's the next thing we should start talking to your lenders, your audience about, is where are we going to put this additional $1,500 we have or more that exceeds the match that normally we would put in the 401k?
I think a lot of assumptions are being made in this conversation. Let me just back up. I think that
I'm with you.
Yeah, and I'm getting troubled by it. I think that we're asking people to do a lot of managing around a 401k that they may not be educated to do. And I hear the advice you're offering. I guess my question is, what does one learn how to be adept at managing a 401k? I mean, the assumption is that if you work at a job and they have a 401k plan, you should invest in it. But then we make the assumption that people who invest in that understand how to manage that. They understand when to adjust the portfolio. Some of the suggestions you made earlier, and I'm not sure that people understand all of that.
That's fair. So I think what we got to teach, we can't run away from things that we don't understand because this is our financial future, right? I think what we have to do here is we got to break down what are the simple things they should look for. So I think the very first thing is, should you have a 401k? And my answer to almost everyone is yes, for two reasons. One, you're taking pre-tax dollars and you're investing it. Two, if your employer makes a match. I think everyone in your audience could understand those first two items. Mm-hmm. Would you agree?
Agreed.
Okay. Now that we've made that decision, and let's assume the answer is yes, the next two things are going to do. What is the match? And typically, your employer will talk as the match as a percentage of income, right? Forget what's the max allowed by the IRS, and forget any of that. Just what is the match the employer will do? The max that you could put in is usually 6%. So if the employer is anything less than 6%, all I'm saying is put in up to whatever the employer matches. So if the employer does 2%, you do 2%. If the employer does 3%, you do 3%, up to 6%. That's one thing. And then the second thing I'm saying to you is there's a point every single year where you're allowed to make a decision on what goes into that 401k. And typically that decision is low risk, medium risk, or high risk. Low risk means that they're going to invest in things like bonds. High risk means they're going to invest in things like stocks. And medium means they're going to be in between. So I think those basic things you want to make sure your audience understands first.
We'll continue our conversation with Everett Sands when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Seeking the truth. Speaking the truth. This is the Tavis Smiley Show.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
Environmental justice, pollution, and climate. In Los Angeles and across America, people of color are suffering and dying from disproportionate health impacts on a planet that has less than 10 years to prevent irreversible damage. Heat illnesses, respiratory illnesses, water-related illnesses, food system impacts, insect-related diseases, black maternal health, and mental health effects. As the impacts of climate change mount, millions of vulnerable people, our people, are going to bear the brunt of these extreme environmental events, which will likely lead to forced displacement, loss of cultural identity, and other related risks. These realities are as real as rain. Stay tuned to KBLA Talk 1580 for more details about the most progressive multimedia and live events campaign any black media outlet has ever undertaken to combat the climate catastrophe. Experts, events, empowerment. It's all on the way from unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580. We don't black down. We level up.
Level up, 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 level up.
Thinking about hosting a podcast and don't know where to start? Morris Media Studios has you covered. We're a professional podcast and voiceover studio located in Leimert Park. We specialize in recording and live streaming audio and video podcasts. Let us help you set up, record, and distribute your podcast. Hosting a podcast is a great way to bring awareness to your business, product, or good cause. For more info, visit morrismediastudios.com or give us a call at 323-815-4204.
Sounds different, huh? This is Tavis Smiley.
So, Everett, I think what I was getting at earlier is that we used to, back in the day, think of these 401k plans as one of those instruments that could, in fact, help us build wealth. But it was really one of those things where we would sort of set it and forget it. I mean, you sign up for the 401k plan, and you're not trying to pull money out of it. You're trying to build it. You're trying to grow it. So, again, you set it, you forget it, you go on about your business. The advice I'm hearing you offer to the audience today, though, is that they have to be more aware. They've got to be more engaged. And I think what I was pressing toward is that I'm okay with that. It's just that requires a level of financial literacy that I don't think we should be assumptive about.
Yeah, I think you're right. And Tavis, I'm going to break it down kind of three ways. I think the first one is, should I have a 401k, yes or no? The second one is 401k adjustments. And then the third thing is, if not a 401k, what else can I do?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's the new kind of set it and forget it? So the 401k, yes or no, we're going to break that down into two things. It's pre-tax dollars. So that generally that means it's a yes. And does your employer match? Because if the employer matches, that tells you yes, and this is how much I should at least put in. I think the 401k adjustments, I thought about it too. I need to simplify it as a finance guy, because you're right. We don't want to make it so that you have to have a finance degree or you have to be, so super educated on these subjects. So I'm going to make it simple. Once you decide to have a 401k, every year there's a time period where you can adjust. The key is just figuring out when that time period is. And then to make it as simple as I possibly can, if savings rates in a bank account, this is any bank, if you look and you see that savings rate is 4%, 5%, anything like that, then that 401k should have a high percentage in low-risk investments, which we typically call bonds. And if that savings rate is low, then that 401k should be in higher risk investments, which typically we call stock. So I think if we can get those basics down, when do I adjust, and then using the bank savings rate as how they make the decision, I think that's important. And then we can then shift to, if I'm not in a 401k, what can I do? And I give the audience a couple of suggestions. There are three things. So let me say first, I am very bullish on investing in businesses, real estate, and private credit. And again, I know what you think at times. You can be like, okay, wait, Everett, I don't want to have to teach them all this stuff, right? So what we're going to do is we're just going to give them we're going to explain what it is. We're going to give some websites. And then here's the reason why I really like this, because ultimately what has made 401k and stock investing hard is, quite frankly, the cost of the stocks and the fact that you can lose money so high. The frequency by which you can lose money is so high because, right, Tesla is, $200 some. If it goes down to $160, you just wipe out 20-30%, and that's a big number. So I'd like to guide the audience towards things where I think they have less of a chance to lose big numbers, or they can invest smaller amounts. So the first one I want to suggest is things like crowdfunding sites. And crowdfunding is where individuals who have businesses, typically a product, sometimes a service, where they put it online and they said, hey, I'd like to raise money. And sometimes you can invest as little as $10, and sometimes it's thousands of dollars. So I want to encourage people to do this. Again, the discipline would be investing in things that you know. So for you, Tavis, it would be investing in somebody that might put something out there about marketing or media or radio stations. So invest only in what you know. You might not necessarily look at the person with the clothing line. Although you wear clothes every single day, you might say, I'm not an expert in something like that. But crowdfunding, I think, is a unique opportunity for us to get a significant return with a low capital outlay. And so a couple of those sites are Kickstarter, GoFundMe, and WeFunder. Again, now we're talking about what are we going to do with the money that's not in the 401k, but we still want to create a positive return for retirement.
Hold that thought. We'll get the rest of that when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley.
Can you dig it? Come on!
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminding you that we keep us safe. Pro Football Hall of Famer and urban peace pioneer Jim Brown believed in just that. So he founded the Amera I Can Foundation for Social Change in 1988, focusing on at-risk and high-risk youth in underserved schools and juvenile detention facilities, as well as adult incarceration and reentry initiatives. The core of the Amera I Can program is its 15-chapter life skills curriculum. Mastery of these skills allows individuals to meet their academic potential, conform their behavior to acceptable societal standards, and improve the quality of their lives by equipping them with what they need to confidently and successfully contribute to society. Today, the foundation is led by its president, Monique Brown, who has been actively involved in the organization for more than 25 years. The Amera I Can Foundation continues its work in memory of its founder, actor, philanthropist, and NFL legend Jim Brown. To get involved or make a donation, please visit AmeriICanCommunity.partners. That's AmeriICanCommunity.partners. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm getting vaccinated with Prevnar 20.
So am I, because I'm at risk for pneumococcal pneumonia.
If you're 19 or older with chronic conditions like asthma, diabetes, COPD, or heart disease, or are 65 or older, you are at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about Prevnar 20, pneumococcal 20-valent conjugate vaccine. It can help protect you against pneumococcal pneumonia in just one dose. Even if you've already been vaccinated with other pneumonia vaccines, Prevnar 20 may help provide added protection. Prevnar 20 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains of the bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia. Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. Side effects include pain and swelling at the injection site, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138 or visit Prevnar20.com.
Ready to re-examine your assumptions and expand your inventory of ideas? More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
All right, Everett Sands, there's a couple minutes left in this conversation, and you were finishing up your list of suggestions. If not a 401k plan, then what?
I also like the real estate crowdfunding site, Reality Mogul and Yield Street. Again, these are places where you can buy fractional pieces of real estate. For those who maybe don't like to invest in businesses or are not ready, you want something more tangible, something you could drive past, something where you can have an ownership share in, but you like that brick and mortar. These are going to be minimum investments, about $500 to $1,000, but again, gives that opportunity for someone to invest. And then if you're a little bit more sophisticated in terms of investing, private credit. And private credit is, I'm sure, Tavis, all of your audience has heard, the banks are tightening in terms of their credit, tightening in terms of their lending. Well, what companies have a tendency to do is they then go to private credit. And so now there's the opportunity to buy fractional shares of private credit. And those are going to be websites like Fundrise, Funrisc. Fundrise allows you to do real estate investment, also allows you to do private credit. And now your audience will get to sit in the seat of the lender. And so, again, just to recap, we want them to definitely do the 401k. We want them to do, because it's pre-tax, it's up to the match of their employer. We also want them to start having the opportunity to look at other things like investing in businesses, real estate, and private credit. So they've got other things that they can invest in and still be able to build that really nice nest egg.
Mm-hmm. But as I understand you, though, you're not saying abandon the 401k.
Nope. Yep. You can't abandon the 401k, especially if you have an employer match.
Yep. Fair enough. Everett Sands, the CEO of Lendistry, and I appreciate his coming on the program today. Everett, all the best to you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tavis.
Have a great rest of the day. Just getting started. That's hour one. 2 more hours to go. We are about to, at the top of this next hour, be joined by Pastor Michael McBride. He's the pastor behind that full-page New York Times ad you saw a few days ago. We talked about the ad that had over 350 preachers, clergy, who signed off on this ad in the New York Times calling for a ceasefire. That hasn't happened as yet. The Biden administration still has not suggested a ceasefire yet. They've not even used the phrase de-escalation as yet. But this full-page ad got a lot of people's attention last week, particularly when you saw all the names of persons, many of whom we know, who affixed their signature to that full page. Yeah, we'll talk to Mike McBride about how he pulled that together. At the top of the hour, we'll talk to Bishop Leah Daughtry, who was the former CEO of the Democratic National Convention. We'll talk to her. She's a bishop now, about why she signed that letter. And then another set of great conversations in our third hour, including Mai Tai Garcia, the former wife of Prince, on Prince's enduring philanthropic legacy. 2 more great hours in front of us. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. An official says repairs will pose a significant